Toronto was never prepared for the darkness hidden behind Ethan Ross's perfect smile. A celebrated real estate developer turned fugitive. Ethan's crimes shattered lives and exposed a web of corruption that reached deep into the city's elite. Detective Sarah Collins, relentless and sharp, led the hunt alongside forensic expert Mark Jensen and cyber analyst Lila Torres, all racing against a man who planned every move like a game of chess. But when whistleblower Daniel Moore vanished and financial advisor Claire Donovan's body surfaced, it became clear Ethan wasn't running from justice. He was orchestrating his masterpiece from the shadows. The city of Toronto was just waking up when the first call came in. A neighbor on Oak Ridge Avenue reported a foul smell coming from the apartment next door. At first, officers expected another welfare check, a routine call that rarely led to anything unusual. But when they forced open the door to Daniel Moore's unit, they froze. The quiet morning light spilled across a scene of chaos. Furniture overturned, shattered glass glinting on the floor, and in the center of it all, the lifeless body of a man who had fought for his life until the very end. Blood had seeped into the carpet, leaving dark stains that told their own silent story. The victim, identified through his wallet and ID, was Daniel Moore, a 34-year-old freelance journalist. His neighbors described him as quiet, polite, and often seen working late through the lighted window of his apartment. Nothing about him hinted at danger or enemies. But the evidence in front of investigators painted a different picture. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, and no footprints on the hallway carpet. Whoever had killed Daniel had been inside willingly. Someone he knew, someone he trusted. Detectives worked through the morning, documenting every inch of the apartment. On Daniel's desk sat his open laptop, its bright screen displaying a half-finished article titled "The Secret Deals of the Bayfront Construction Project." It mentioned shady investments, political kickbacks, and a list of names, all blacked out except one: Ethan Ross. The name immediately caught attention. Ethan was a well-known businessman in Toronto's real estate market, celebrated for his luxury projects and spotless reputation. Yet the more the detectives read, the clearer it became that Daniel had uncovered something dangerous. The most damning evidence came from the floor near Daniel's body. A single silver cufflink engraved with the initials ER. It was a small but unmistakable clue. When police ran the initials through their database, Ethan's name appeared again. Within hours, investigators traced the cufflink's model to a limited edition collection imported by a company Ethan personally owned. The link between the two men was no longer just coincidence. It was evidence. Detectives reached out to question Ethan, but their calls went unanswered. When they visited his office, it was locked. His assistant claimed he had taken a sudden trip 2 days earlier. Security cameras showed him leaving the building late at night, carrying a duffel bag, calm and composed. His phone had been switched off since that evening. By the time police visited his penthouse apartment, Ethan Ross was gone. Forensic analysis later revealed partial prints on Daniel's laptop that matched Ethan's records from a prior business license filing. It was enough to escalate the case. Within 48 hours, the Toronto Police Service issued a Canada-wide warrant for the arrest of Ethan Ross, charging him with first-degree murder. News outlets across the country exploded with the headline, "A respected businessman had become a fugitive overnight." As officers retraced his steps and reporters crowded outside police headquarters, one question echoed through the city. Why would a man like Ethan Ross, with power, money, and status, risk everything to silence a journalist? Few knew it then, but this murder was only the first thread in a much larger web of corruption waiting to be unraveled. The manhunt for Ethan Ross began with urgency and confusion. Every major news outlet in Canada carried his picture. The sharply dressed developer with piercing blue eyes and a reputation for elegance. Police stations across the country received dozens of tips within hours, but most led nowhere. Some claimed to have seen him boarding a train to Montreal. Others swore he was hiding in the woods near Muskoka. But the truth was, Ethan was far more calculating than anyone imagined. He had planned his escape long before Daniel Moore's death. Detectives learned from surveillance footage that Ethan's car, a black BMW, was found abandoned near the Scarborough Bluffs. The keys were missing, and inside the trunk, investigators discovered a discarded burner phone and a map of Ontario marked with a route leading north toward Sudbury. However, when officers checked local motels along the route, no one had registered under his name or shown identification that matched his description. It was as though he had vanished into thin air. But Ethan Ross had money, connections, and the kind of influence that opened doors ordinary fugitives could never access. While investigators were tracking Ethan's movements, forensic teams continued digging through Daniel's files. On his computer's encrypted drive, they found something explosive, a folder named The Bayfront Scandal. Inside were scanned contracts, offshore bank transfers, and evidence of bribes that pointed directly to Ethan's company. The documents revealed a scheme to launder money through fake development projects while paying off city officials to look the other way. Daniel had been gathering proof for months, working alone, unaware that someone was watching his every step. The more detectives uncovered, the darker the story became. A hidden camera in Daniel's apartment, found behind a wall vent, proved that someone had been spying on him. For weeks, Ethan had been monitoring Daniel's progress, waiting for the right moment to act. Police traced the camera's purchase to a private security contractor on Ethan's payroll. The timeline was undeniable. The surveillance began just days before Daniel's murder. Meanwhile, a breakthrough came when a gas station attendant near North Bay reported a man resembling Ethan, who had filled up a dark-colored pickup truck using cash. The man wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, and when asked about his license plate, he joked that it was better not to remember. CCTV footage confirmed the sighting. Ethan had changed vehicles, appearance, and even his mannerisms. It was clear he wasn't just running. He was reinventing himself. Back in Toronto, the police were under immense public pressure. The case had become a national obsession, with talk shows debating how a respected businessman had turned into a killer. Every lead brought hope and disappointment. But then a strange clue emerged. A handwritten note mailed anonymously to the police station. It read, "He's not done yet. Another name is on the list." There were no fingerprints, no return address, and no explanation. Detectives feared the note was genuine. If Ethan had killed once to protect his secrets, what would stop him from doing it again? They increased security around known associates of Daniel Moore and began monitoring anyone connected to the Bayfront project. The web of corruption was wider than expected, and Ethan Ross wasn't the only one with something to hide. As night fell over Toronto, the city buzzed with unease. Police helicopters scanned the skies, news vans lined the streets, and somewhere far away, under a fake identity, Ethan Ross watched the chaos unfold on a motel television. He smiled faintly. The game had only just begun, and he still had one last plan to execute before disappearing for good. The investigation entered its third week, and the Toronto Police Major Crimes Unit was on the brink of exhaustion. Each day brought a new lead, but each lead seemed to end with the same emptiness. A man who was always one step ahead. Ethan Ross had effectively erased his past, leaving behind fragments of his life that led nowhere. Detectives learned that he had withdrawn nearly $500,000 in cash in the months leading up to the murder. It was clear now that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment crime. It was a calculated disappearance. Detective Sarah Collins, now leading the task force, began to notice a pattern in Ethan's movements. Every reported sighting placed him near construction zones, small towns, or places under active redevelopment. It was as if he was hiding in plain sight, using his knowledge of the industry to blend into the background of his own projects. Her team discovered that one of Ethan's shell companies had recently purchased a large, secluded property north of Parry Sound, officially listed under the name of an associate, Richard Hale. The property was surrounded by dense forest, a private dock, and no nearby neighbors. Police prepared for a raid, expecting to find evidence or perhaps Ethan himself. But when they arrived, what they found was far stranger. Inside the cabin were blueprints, sealed documents, and photographs pinned to the wall. Aerial shots of Toronto's waterfront, construction permits, and images of several city officials. Among them was a photo of Detective Collins herself, marked with a red X. It became clear that Ethan wasn't just hiding. He was watching them too. The discovery sent a shockwave through the department. For the first time, it appeared that the hunter might have become the hunted. Investigators intensified their search, now fearing that Ethan was planning something larger, perhaps revenge against those who had exposed him. A forensic analysis of the documents revealed several offshore accounts tied to major development projects that were still active. Ethan's reach extended far beyond what they had imagined. Meanwhile, the anonymous note that had warned police of another potential victim was revisited. Handwriting experts suggested it was written by someone close to Ethan, possibly a former partner or accomplice. One name kept resurfacing: Claire Donovan, a former financial advisor at Ross Development Group who had vanished 2 years earlier after a rumored falling out with Ethan. Investigators began to wonder if Claire was still alive, or if she had become one of Ethan's secrets too. Then, just as the investigation began to lose momentum, a chilling video surfaced online. It showed grainy footage from a public library's security camera in Ottawa. The timestamp was just 2 days old. A man resembling Ethan Ross could be seen sitting at a computer, reading a news article about his own manhunt. Before leaving, he looked directly into the camera for a brief moment, almost as if to confirm his presence. When authorities rushed to the library, they found nothing but a used coffee cup and a printed newspaper left behind on the table. Inside the newspaper was a message scrawled in pen. "You're looking in the wrong place." It was both a taunt and a clue. Detective Collins realized that every step they had taken was one Ethan had anticipated. He was manipulating the investigation like a chessboard, forcing the police to move exactly where he wanted them. The discovery of the message changed everything. Ethan wasn't trying to stay hidden anymore. He was leading them somewhere. But where that path would end, no one could predict. The message in the newspaper sent the investigation spiraling into chaos. The words, "You're looking in the wrong place," echoed through the Toronto Police Headquarters, forcing everyone to question whether Ethan Ross was toying with them or warning them about something more sinister. Detective Sarah Collins refused to let the case go cold again. She ordered her team to re-examine every piece of evidence collected so far: the abandoned BMW, the hidden surveillance devices, the offshore accounts, and the photographs found in the Parry Sound cabin. Every detail mattered now. When digital forensics went through the files again, they uncovered a strange pattern. Many of Ethan's offshore accounts had recently been accessed, not from outside the country, but from within Toronto itself. That discovery shattered the assumption that he had fled north. It meant only one thing: Ethan Ross had returned. Whether to finish unfinished business or to destroy the evidence against him, nobody knew. But one fact was certain: the killer was closer than anyone thought. The city was immediately put on alert. Security footage from high-end hotels, construction sites, and financial districts was reviewed frame by frame. And then a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A security guard at a luxury condo complex in downtown Toronto reported seeing a man who looked like Ethan entering the underground parking lot late at night. He was wearing a baseball cap and carrying what appeared to be gardening tools. The details seemed insignificant until Detective Collins remembered Ethan's background in landscape design before his corporate success. That skill had helped him build his empire, and now it might be helping him hide. When officers searched the property, they found traces of soil and fertilizer in a locked maintenance room. The building's rooftop garden showed freshly dug soil, yet no new plants had been added. Cadaver dogs were brought in, and what they discovered horrified everyone. Buried beneath the flower beds was a black duffel bag containing clothing, personal documents, and a laptop belonging to Claire Donovan, the missing financial advisor. DNA confirmed her identity within hours. Claire had been dead for at least a year, and it was clear Ethan had used his gardening expertise to conceal her remains in one of his own developments. The discovery reignited the case nationwide. Media outlets ran headlines calling him the gardener killer. The theory was that Ethan used his projects to bury secrets in plain sight, bodies hidden beneath carefully manicured gardens and public parks. The police began excavating other Ross Development properties, fearing there might be more victims. And they were right. In a suburban community park outside Mississauga, investigators unearthed two more bodies, both connected to whistleblowers who had once worked with Ethan. Detective Collins now knew Ethan wasn't just running. He was cleaning up his past. Every person who had ever threatened to expose him had been silenced and buried beneath the beauty he had created. The chase took a darker turn when investigators received another anonymous letter, this time left directly on Collins' car windshield. It read, "You've dug deep enough. The next one will be someone you know." Fears spread through the department, and Collins was placed under protection. But she refused to stop. The clues were closing in, and she felt that Ethan wanted her to follow, as if he was guiding her toward their final encounter. Unbeknownst to her, Ethan had already chosen the location for the endgame, a place where his story had begun, and where he intended it to end. The city that had made him a powerful man was about to witness the moment he brought it all crashing down. Detective Sarah Collins knew the case had reached its breaking point. The discovery of multiple bodies buried beneath Ethan Ross's projects had turned a financial crime into one of Canada's most chilling serial investigations. The country was gripped with fear. The media called Ethan the architect of death, a man who built beauty over horror. The warning note left on Sarah's car made it clear Ethan was no longer hiding. He was preparing for something personal, something final. The team traced the letter's paper to a boutique stationery store in Toronto's Distillery District. The surveillance footage from the store captured a man wearing gloves and a gray hoodie, walking with an eerily calm posture. When police enhanced the footage, there was no doubt it was Ethan Ross. But what unsettled everyone wasn't just his appearance, it was his behavior. He wasn't rushing or trying to hide. He seemed composed, almost purposeful. Sarah believed Ethan wanted to be seen. A few days later, police received a report from a property manager near Toronto's waterfront, one of Ethan's first real estate projects, long abandoned after a fire. The caller said someone had been seen entering the site at night. When officers arrived, they found signs of recent activity: muddy footprints, cigarette butts, and a generator still warm. The air smelled of gasoline. Sarah ordered a full lockdown of the area, convinced this was the end of Ethan's trail. Inside the burned-out structure, everything was eerily quiet. The team swept room by room, their flashlights slicing through the smoke-stained walls. In one corner of the basement, they found a makeshift workspace, a desk, an old laptop, and a small camera still recording. On the laptop screen was a live video feed of the detectives themselves, captured by hidden cameras placed around the building. Ethan was watching them again. And then a timer appeared on the screen, slowly counting down from 60 seconds. Sarah shouted for everyone to evacuate. They barely made it outside before a deafening explosion ripped through the building, sending debris and dust into the night sky. The fire consumed everything inside, but in the aftermath, no body was found. Ethan Ross had vanished once again, or so it seemed. 2 days later, a fisherman near Lake Ontario discovered a body washed ashore. The face was unrecognizable, burned beyond identification, but a wallet recovered from the clothing contained Ethan's ID and credit cards. Forensic analysis later confirmed his DNA. Officially, the case was closed. The headlines declared that Canada's most wanted man was dead, but Detective Collins wasn't convinced. A week after the explosion, she received a small package in her office with no return address. Inside was a silver cufflink engraved with Ethan's initials, and a photograph of her standing outside her home, taken from a distance. The message was unmistakable. Ethan Ross might be gone, but he was still out there, watching. The investigation was over, but the fear lingered. Sarah often wondered if the body found at the lake had truly been his, or just another elaborate distraction. The unanswered questions haunted her, and sometimes late at night, she caught herself looking over her shoulder, half expecting to see those cold blue eyes staring back. For the public, the story of Ethan Ross became a cautionary legend, a tale of ambition, deceit, and a darkness hidden behind charm. For the detectives who lived it, it was a reminder that some crimes never truly end. And somewhere, in a quiet town under a different name, A man with a familiar smile tended to a garden that bloomed unnaturally, bright, as if nourished by secrets only he knew. The story of Ethan Ross stands as a chilling reminder that monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes, they walk among us in plain sight. Behind his charm and success lay a trail of deceit, murder, and manipulation that stained Toronto's skyline forever. Detective Sarah Collins and her team fought tirelessly to uncover the truth. But even after the case closed, the shadows of Ethan's crimes lingered. If this story kept you on edge, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more real-life inspired true crime documentaries.